All right, rolling.
Hey everybody, this is Little Sister Chris and your grief therapist, and I'm coming at you with a little segment, just a solo segment. And I want to call this segment 1,000 Day Ones. What do I mean by 1,000 Day Ones? Day ones being that grief can make you feel as though you're starting all over again. So just say you're going to the gym and you're trying to work out, you're trying to lose weight, and every day seems like a new day. But that day one, you can feel so tired and like you don't want to do it. You might have a little motivation to get it done, and you might see yourself, thinner, healthier, all of these things, but you just know that day one is the hardest of all the days. And then again, day two can feel like day one. And don't sit down for a while and have to do it all over again. And then you're back to square one. You have gotten off the horse, fallen off the horse, and gained some weight, or is not as physically fit as you were, if you were to be consistent. But 1,000 Day Ones in grief can feel like you're living a flashback, you're living a terror, you're living in a nightmare. 1,000 Day Ones came from just knowing that having to be in the same spot, feeling like you're not moving whatsoever, and trying to figure out if there's a structure to grief. A lot of my clients, and I'm coming at you from two different perspectives as a therapist and as little sister, and then coming at it from those two perspectives, we know that there's times where you want to have a manual for grief. You want to have a structure to it so you know when you're about to get relief. You want to know where the end of it is. And then you find out there is no real ending. Things get a bit easier, but there's no ending. So 1,000 Day Ones is what we're talking about for grief and how that affects you, your family, your life, your work life. Oh my gosh, your work life, having to go to work, your finances, all those things, those setbacks that we talk about. The reason why I do not say, or I do not with my clients default to the 5 stages of grief is because we don't talk about the fact that there's anger and there's regret and there's sometimes relief and there's financial issues and there's brain fog. We don't talk about those things in the 5 stages of grief. There's spiritual disconnection, there's mental health disconnections, there's physical disconnections, all of those things. How does the 5 stages of grief talk about or even reference the fact that you don't want to leave the bed on day 100 and it feels again like a day one? Why does grief feel like 1,000 start overs? Why does it feel like you take a step back when you have made steps forward? Because we're human, going through this experience of loss, of tragedy, we are going through something that people can write manuals about and you can get therapy and get support on. But it is definitely a journey of emotions. It's a journey of trying to mentally and even physiologically, biologically, being able to get back on some type of track. 1,000 Day One. So I wanted to give you something that I use with my clients and when I'm teaching grief and loss and bereavement with groups and organizations, and it is the Mourner's Bill of Rights, and it's written by Dr. Alan Warfeld. And what he wrote down were 10 Bill of Rights. One of them being you have the right to experience your own unique grief. It doesn't matter if somebody else has the same type of grief. It doesn't matter. Yours is going to be unique to you. There might be some similarities, but you have the right to experience your own unique grief. You have the right to talk about your grief and to share that. There are parts of life where people want to move you along or rush you in the process. You have the right to talk about your grief and the person that you lost or persons that you lost. You have the right to feel a multitude of emotions. the grief and emotional roller coaster that happens where you can feel happy in 1 minute and very sad the next minute, you have the right to feel those different emotions all at one time. You have the right to be tolerant of your physical and emotional limits. If you can't do something, letting people know that you can't do it and not pushing yourself to do so. We've had in my life, my own life as a little sister, and as well as grief therapist, there have been many times where I just thought I could get up and go to work, and then find out that I can't even put on my pair of pants or tie my shoes to get in the car because I literally cannot move. You have the right to experience grief bursts. And a good friend of mine who is a therapist in Calabasas, California, calls it a grief tsunami. So grief burst and grief tsunami. If you can think in your mind and the imagination of what a tsunami is like, where you see a tidal wave coming towards you and you don't know how you're going to make it out of that, you have the right to experience what those are. You have the right to make use of ritual, whatever that is in your family, whatever you want to create for your loved one that brings you some sort of resolve and some sort of peace. Whatever that ritual being, whether you want to do your own memorial service, whether you want to do an eternal or death anniversary celebration, whatever you would like to do for a ritual to be able to bring yourself the peace that you need in your journey. You have the right to embrace your spirituality, whatever that may look like, and it might look different after the loss, and it might feel different. You have that right. You have the right to search for meaning. A lot of times in the spiritual world, we're asking the question of why. And if you have some seasoned saints in your life, and they're like, "Well, you're not supposed to ask the Lord why. He does everything on purpose. There's a season. There's a reason." Well, you have the right to search for meaning in what that looks like after you've lost a loved one, someone dear to you, or even the meaning of the reason why the life was cut short, or you didn't have time for a resolve. You have the right to treasure your memories and whatever that looks like. You have that right to treasure that, whatever you want to put that in a memory box. And for all those who have not thought about that, or even if you know flowers or the petals and putting those in a little container if you want to, or whatever jewelry you have, the right to remind yourself and to treasure the memories that you have with your loved one. And you have the right to move forward towards your grief and heal. You don't have to explain to anybody, and you don't have to prove to anybody how big your grief is. You don't have to do any of that. You have the right to move forward and move toward your healing. Your loved one would want you to heal, right? So you have every right. So I wanted you guys to know that when you are going through the flashbacks, when you're going through the nightmare and the terror of being where you were when you found out, or being where you were when you saw and you took witness to it, you have these rights. And I want you to know that it's very normal to have those days where you feel like you took steps back. But then normally, they feel like step backs, but it's part of the journey. This is little sister Kristen, your grief therapist, talking to you about the grip spot and every day being a different day and healing on your journey in 1,000 day ones.